Welcome, Warriors.
Yay.
It is part 2 of our season 2 finale.
We made it.
We freaking did this thing, girl.
Mm-hmm.
Did this thing. We wrapped up another season. Here we are at the very end of 2022. It's been a year.
It's been a year.
It's been a year.
True.
Like, I mean, insert your own, ideas of what kind of year it's been, but it's been a year and it's a lot of good has happened this year. A lot of annoying and irritating and not so good has happened this year too. I'm sure the same is true for all of you warriors listening. But the one thing that's true is that we have had nothing but incredible guests on this show.
Very true.
Nothing but inspiration from these folks that you all heard from in last week's part 1 of our season 2 finale. If you all, for some reason, missed that episode, maybe you want to hop back and make it a double feature. Maybe not. Maybe you're just here to get the anxiety warrior definitions, in which case we are going to offer that for you. We got you covered.
Yes.
All of our guests this week, we are sharing their responses to what does it mean to be an anxiety warrior. When you and I named this show way back nearly 2 years ago already, which what the fuck? That's crazy.
Yeah.
We had our very unique and individualized definitions for this phrase. And when it's been turned around on us a few times, like, how do you define it? And you said something, I don't remember who asked us, but you were like, I've kind of taken a little bit of what everybody said and added it to my definition. And I definitely feel like that's been true for me too.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing is in our very first episode, I think I was actually more nervous than thinking, right? I hadn't prepared a whole thing about what it means, but that's the beauty of community is we all inspire each other and we learn so much from each other. And that's what I've really gained is honestly, part of what it means to be an anxiety warrior. I've learned from what our guests share because it's true, right? It's oh yeah, that is part of being an anxiety warrior. I love how you were just reminiscing about wow, it's been 2 years and everything. And when you said that, it made me think of how we were coming up with our questions for our podcast. And we were actually doing it with Anthony, who was one of our first brave guests in season 1. And I remember we were like, okay, so what do we ask our guests? We got to have our staple questions. And then we got to be able to have other questions based on their story. And I remember we had this arc, right?
Yes.
How does it show up in your body? What is your relationship now to anxiety? What advice would you give and then we were like, oh yeah, we have to ask every single person what it means to them.
Right.
Because what it means to us is it's obviously, as we've learned, not the same. They're all connected and related. And it's probably one of the questions that I always look the most forward to when we have our guests is how do they define it? What does it mean for them? And I'll just say, without spoiling anything, what I really appreciate in so many of the responses is that so many people share that part of being a warrior is helping others. Right? It's knowing that we're not alone on this path together and to show up and support the other people in our community. And it just every time I hear that, it's yes, I just feel it, brings tears to my eyes because it just community is powerful. We're not alone and we can all support each other on this journey.
Yeah. Oh, yes, totally. And I feel in that same vein, what came up for me when you were sharing that one sentiment that a lot of our guests have shared in their responses to this question, for me, it's always about hearing whether it's a version of softness or strength or both. A lot of the through line that happens, I think, in this season, and I'm sure, and in season 1, when we went back and listened to all of our season 1 guest responses to this question, what does it mean to be an anxiety warrior? There was a lot of varying degrees of it takes this, right? It takes this, fill in the blank. Or I feel like this when I hear that phrase. And that just always lit me up because I look at the phrase anxiety warrior as something, and part of my definition is it's a badge of fucking honor. It's something that is part of me. It's not leaving. I don't have to kick it away. I don't have to, hate it because guess what? The it is me.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so if I'm hating it, I'm hating me. And that's the exact opposite of what I want. So like, I feel like that's always what I look forward to hearing in many of the responses. And similar to our, the previous weeks, our season 2, episode 1, where we heard from our guests saying all the things that they would offer to their younger selves, all the advice they would offer their younger selves. These 2 questions as the end of all of our interviews have become my favorite part of every interview, because I know we've often said, like, we love hearing the meat of people's stories, which happens earlier in the conversation. And while that's where obviously we're learning the most, we're finding out about someone's unique path, their specific journey from childhood through adulthood and wherever they are right now. But there's something about these last 2 questions, this one in particular, that feels like the most connected to the community, like you're saying. It's like where we find all of the similarities, and all the things that we can hold on to as a community of warriors. And so, yeah, I love this question so much. I'm so excited to have all of our warrior listeners, including all of our guests who are hopefully listening to themselves right now and feeling proud. And we are so grateful that they all chose to come on and share their story with the world.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to thank all of our guests just for showing up, right? Like showing up as themselves, and you and I have talked about before how like small talk and all that stuff can cause us discomfort and anxiety. And all our guests just like, they dive right in, whether we've met them before or not. They're just so brave and honest and vulnerable. And, whether I've only spoken to them that one time in that one episode, or I've maintained some contact, or they're my friends and I've talked to them, since then or whatever, like I just feel so connected to our community because we can truly show up and show who we are and what we're sharing. We're not trying to sell something. We're not trying to pretend we're someone that we aren't. Everyone that's shown up has shared their story so beautifully, so vulnerably, so honestly. And then just like what it means to them to show up in the world as an anxiety warrior, just like,
I know, right? Yeah. Just like heart sore.
Yeah.
Heart sore warriors. Well, without further ado, enjoy this second half of our season 2 finale. What does being an anxiety warrior mean to you?
So I was thinking like of a warrior. And then I was thinking like yoga warriors, because that's where my brain went. And I remember the first time I tried to do a warrior in yoga teacher training, and my feet were not right. And I remember the teacher said, all you have to do is look down and look at your feet. And I was like, oh. And I looked down and I could put my feet in the right position or where they needed to go. And I did it and it felt good. And so to me, an anxiety warrior is showing up even when I feel defeated and scared. Is showing up even when I don't know where to put my feet, or I don't know the right answer, or I might lose people along the way, or I might stumble over my words, but I still show up and I can still find the ground and I can still find my foundation to tackle whatever comes. So that's what an anxiety warrior is.
I think if I were to give you an answer right now without really thinking deeper, it'll be more about being aware that anxiety will always be in your life and just learn how to have a balance. Levels of anxiety are always helpful, but too much of it will hurt you. Too little of it will not help you. So just learning how to balance that. I think if you want to truly be, I guess, an anxiety warrior, just be able to balance it.
Yeah, I love this too. I think that being an anxiety warrior is very much about having strength, having, sorry, now I'm like feeling emotional, having self-compassion, as I mentioned, having accountability for what you need to do in order to progress through your journey with mental health. And then also remaining hopeful, because at any point, whether or not I'm talking about my own journey or my journey with my dad, it's been very important for me to like hold on to pieces of hope throughout, whether or not that hope has changed in the way in which it's looked over the years, right? That hope when I was younger was, oh, I'll have my exact dad back, right? That hope as I grew older was, my dad is still alive and here and he's medicated. So that's like a huge win. And I think that combining all of those different aspects of mental health really is what will make you an anxiety warrior.
I think it means just acceptance. Like, it's going to happen. You're going to have anxiety on a daily basis, sometimes from the moment you wake up. But like, hey, at least you woke up, right? So take it. There's a blessing in there. Roll with it, learn from it. And then maybe you will learn something and then you won't have anxiety about it the next time. So I think like that's the big thing. Just keep, I don't want to use the word fighting anxiety, right? But like, just kind of like rolling with it. Like it is like, it's part of us. It's always going to be part of us. You're never not going to have like anxiety. So I think it's just like working together with your anxiety. I think would be where, that's how I would define being like an anxiety warrior.
It means just doing it every day and just pushing through and knowing that it doesn't have to take you over. And it's like facing each situation and saying, I can do this. And just being your own cheerleader, reaching out to other anxiety warriors and just knowing that I can tackle things. My anxiety is not me. I have anxiety, but it doesn't have to own you and it doesn't have to prevent you from living your life. Like if I had let my anxiety live if I lived my life by what my anxiety told me to do, I wouldn't do anything. I would literally sit on my couch and watch Netflix. I wouldn't talk to anybody. I certainly wouldn't be talking to you guys on this. No way in hell. So it's like, I definitely think it's about pushing through that fear and doing what you want to do, like at your core, what's important to you, and not letting your anxiety prevent that. And I can still carry it along and do all the things I want to do.
Now I think it just means I'm someone that when my son gets older and he starts going through this stuff, I can be a warrior for the both of us because I know how bad it can get. That now when he's dealing, I know I can be his support system. So that's going to be me being a warrior, is not fighting his battles for him, because he's going to have to do that on his own, because that's the only way you learn from it. But I know I can be there to catch him. Just in general, like, I know that my story is not unique, even though it's unique to me, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just hoping that people can hear this and it helps them battle whatever they're feeling. And, they realize, hey, man, if this 6'2" chubby guy can do it, I can do it. Sorry, 6'3". I lied.
You are tall. So tall. God.
He's remarkably large.
Amazing.
But that's what I think being a warrior is, just now at this point, because I don't know if this has ever been said on your podcast before, but I feel, because I have listened to a bunch of your episodes, I don't think I'm a victim of anxiety anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I think that this past year I really kicked its ass. It's obviously not gone. It's never going to be gone. But at this point, I want to be a warrior for other people who might be going through what I went through.
So being an anxiety warrior means to me that I'm constantly tackling the symptoms of being able to self-advocate for myself. I use that word a lot, but it's so important. Yeah. And to offer myself self-care. Mm-hmm. And one more, and that's the offer myself grace. Mm-hmm. That's what it feels like. It's like 3 different parts. It's like every day. So I try not to put more than 2 things on my calendar every day. And that's really, really hard. And when I say that, I mean, like, no matter, like if it's important enough to go on the calendar, then it's one of those two things. Now, there's some things that I just got to do, and it doesn't necessarily have to go on the calendar. But if it's important enough to go on the calendar, then I look at my calendar and I'm like, okay, I have two things. And I know for myself that once I get past those two major things, then I'm a little frazzled. So being able to be like, okay, I know that it doesn't sound like a lot, but I'm self-advocating for myself, and that's what I can handle. And that's part of my self-care. And it's all right for me to offer myself that. That's my grace. So
Yes.
So I think a couple of things for me, and I guess when I started to find out that I could overcome my fear of public speaking, like once I figured that out, I then wanted to help others as well. So I saw the light at the end of the tunnel, and I decided to start doing a bit of coaching on the side. I didn't charge people for it to begin with, favors and skill swaps. So for example, somebody might design me a logo and I'll do a bit of coaching for them. But I launched this business called Succeed Through Speaking, and it was a coaching business, an opportunity to show people that if you put energy and effort into learning how to speak better, you're more likely to succeed in relationships, in business, and in your career. So one thing for me was proactively, once you've been on your journey, go back and think, who can I help now bring on that journey with me, and how can I do that potentially through coaching? And then second bit for me, like exactly what you've done, I launched a podcast again called Succeed Through Speaking, and I interview public speakers who have made it to the top of their game, and I find out about their journey from the early days of anxiety around speaking and fear, and how they got from there to now being a keynote speaker. So for me, to answer your question, I think, bring people on your journey who you need to help, and also, proactively create content that you can put out there into the world to help other people that might be struggling as well.
So to me, it means that, and I wanted to say this earlier, so I'm glad that you asked. I think of warriors as people who are always in a constant defense, always using what they need to in terms of tools and in terms of techniques, and defending. And I think that being an anxiety warrior to me means that you're doing that for yourself, that you are always learning the things that you need, that you're willing to drop the things that don't work anymore, pick up the things that do, and that you're always refining and practicing your technique in the defense of yourself, so that you can stay safe and protected as we navigate this thing that we call life.
It means not letting your anxiety ever define you. Find ways to mitigate it, as we spoke about the whole show. Find ways to not let it define you, but for you to define it. It's coming, so what? I know what I'm going to do to counteract it. And again, being an anxiety warrior, I think, speaks that you realize you're not alone. You've spoken about it. You're getting your story out there, and you're finding ways to hear other stories. I'm learning from you both the whole episode, and just that it's never going to overcome you, as best you can, that is.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess for me, it's just the fact that there's a twofold. I guess for myself, it's just how resilient I feel like I am. Like, I just feel like I've come back from a lot of times where I've been down, and I've always come back, and not by myself. I've had help, and it's important to remember for myself, and I want to remind other people, like, no one does this shit alone, and that's how it's supposed to be. I have come back a lot, and asking for help makes me a warrior too. And I've had to start over yet again, but I'm here, and I'm still here, and I'm still fighting for myself and my mental health and my life. So, and then the other thing is just like, I am so passionate about helping young people to understand that they matter, and that their mental health matters, and that they are capable of hard things, that they can do what they think they can't, that it's okay to ask for help,
that their feelings are valid and real, that adults care about them, that their friends care about them. And it's like, no, all you have to do is try. Like, all you have to do is just keep going and you'll be okay.
I think it means strength and resilience. So often when we live with mental illness, we don't feel strong and we don't feel resilient. But what I often do with my clients, for example, is that whatever you're going through today, if it was something that's similar that you went through, so say, for example, a relationship breakdown, and the anxiety and depression that might come from that, and then you go, okay, well, have you had any other relationships in your life where things haven't worked out? Yeah, okay. What did you do to get through that? It could have been, oh, I started exercising again. I started, joining social groups. It could be that I went and spoke to someone. And these are resilient factors. They're factors that, that highlight what we're good at. We're problem solving people, and that we can use that to our advantage and use that as strengths for us to move forward. So to be an anxiety warrior is that, because we've probably been doing it for a very long time, is that we are resilient. We know how to get through rough periods as well. So for me, like that intrusive thought around the knife thing, I knew from my experience that going and talking to someone is a resilient factor for me. It's a strength, because I can talk about it, and then I can get help and guidance as to how to address that particular issue. So it's really around that strength and resilience, and remembering that we all are strong and all are resilient. And it's just about tuning into that and recognizing that you will get over this period if it's a hard period for you, and you'll come out the other side, and then you'll probably go through it again, but you've got the tools in your toolkit to be able to manage that when it happens. So
I think for me, it means just being vulnerable and sharing, your struggles, because your struggles become gifts to other people, of what they can do and connection. So I think that for me, it's definitely sharing and telling your story and being okay to talk about the messy parts of you, because they might speak to someone and help them futuristically. It's almost like speaking to my past self, but able to share it, with others.
See, to me, being an anxiety warrior is really about finding a loving relationship with my anxiety. It's really about welcoming it, feeling it, having conversations with it, bringing love to it, and treating it more like a teacher and more like a strengthener than like an enemy.
Not letting it define you and limit you. So you can still do things that scare you. Don't not go down a particular avenue because it's scary. It seems so little and silly, but I've always wanted to have like an Etsy shop, and I've always wanted to sing with a band, and I've always wanted, and like those things are fucking scary. Like what if I make something and someone just hates it when they get it, or and they go online and like destroy me, and like
leave a mean review. Yes.
Like what if these are all like, it's okay to have anxiety and be vulnerable, because you don't want to miss out on so many opportunities. So just find a way to, be a warrior and kind of battle through by, may it be leaning on people that you trust, or may it be setting healthy boundaries, or may it be whatever it takes for you to be a warrior and kind of find that courage within you and kind of battle through that feeling of over nervousness, because everyone feels nervous doing something that means a lot to them, and then add anxiety on top of that. So you can't let, just because something seems a little scary or it's uncomfortable, stop you from trying to do it if it's something that really lights your soul on fire.
I'm so glad you asked, because this is a big one for me. I have this theory that the more people are integrating with technology and with virtual realities, that the more they're susceptible and that they're honestly being attacked in terms of their stress response. I really do think that it's making the world more fucked up, and that there are a ton of people out there who are really vigilant about certain things, and really they're terrified. Really, they're not aware of. I mean, just go watch The Social Network. They're breaking it down. They've been telling us since a long time ago, since before Facebook even blew up to where it is, that yeah, they figured out that if they scare you, they can sell you better. If they scare you, they can, if they bring out your negative reactions, those actually travel faster neurologically, and so you get a quicker response, you get a quicker click. And so I have this theory that if you can connect people with themselves better, you get less pissed off people. You get people who are more grounded, not just for the sake of being more grounded, but for the sake of just having a more peaceful and sensible world. So it occurred to me a couple of years ago that, okay, ADHD is a thing. It's very important to me. I'm connected to this community, but also, like, when you understand what's happening to you neurologically, it's way less scary and you're way less reactionary. I think that the more I can raise awareness about that, and then I can help people with tools to be less overwhelmed, that they'll be a lot more prepared for the world that we're heading into and that we're already in. And I don't know, maybe make the world a little bit better.
I think to me, it means using anxiety to build strength, to build resilience, and to guide us. Like, it's a beautiful redirection. So I guess being an anxiety warrior means to, use it to our advantage, but also teach others how to do the same.
What does it mean to me? And this is a new terminology for me, so I'm getting familiar with anxiety warrior. But at the end of the day, I really think it's just not giving up and doing what I need to do to get through the day and have a meaningful day. Do one meaningful thing for the day. Doing one thing to get outside of my comfort zone. Not every day, not every week, but maybe once a month. Do something that I normally wouldn't do and get out of myself.
Oh. It means being able to face the worries and the fears, and to be able to know that those are temporary, and I have the tools to get through it. To be an advocate for my children and for others, and working through what will work for them so that they can be anxiety warriors. Those are the two big things.
Being an anxiety warrior to me means a couple things. The first thing I would say is being vulnerable. And we talked about this in my support group. Being vulnerable is not weak. It's, my definition is being open and trusted environments. And so there's a little bit of uncertainty that comes with that, because, like, I don't know what you're going to think about me if I share, who I really am. But the reward in that is to be able to connect with people. And that's what makes it totally, worth it. I would say the next thing is showing up for yourself, right? There's certain days where you don't feel like doing certain things, right? Like, I thought it was, somebody may think it was silly for me to go in and touch the doorknob, right? But for that day, that was me showing up and pressing the limitations and the walls that I created to protect myself, right? I would say the next thing is, on the days, especially where you're not able to show up, is that thing my counselor told me, having self-compassion. I learned to embrace that over time, because guess what? Some days just suck. Some days you're not able to show up, Some days you try to show up and your body doesn't cooperate with you, right? But you should still have self-compassion, for yourself. And then I would say the last thing is finding your superpower. And my superpower in the darkness, in the rock bottom, was hope. That's what I would say my superpower is. And even my counselor told me to write all the positive things I was experiencing, all the negative things that I was feeling. And the only thing I had at the lowest moment that I wrote on the positive side was hope. And I feel like it's always been there, but kind of, with all the achievements and the pursuit of goals and stuff, you kind of, again, externalizing the worth of the things that you accumulate and you're able to do, like your real gift kind of gets, hidden. But once all those things are taken away, or you're not really in a position where you can do all those things anymore, what do you have left? Who are you really now? And for me, the answer to that was I'm hope, and that was what I locked into. And that's what helped me to kind of progressively, find my way back home.
Right.
Yeah. I love this question. I've been thinking about this one. So I can't help but get the image of like 90s Hercules and Xena. Like, you remember like Kevin Sorbo and Lucy Lawless, like in my head. And so what it is it's true embodiment of, like, when you say an anxiety warrior, it's like a warrior around that. And so I think of somebody who is a warrior, and here's some of the things about them. They have battle scars. You can see some of them and you can't see some of them. And even if I'm just talking about like scars on your body, like some of them are under your clothes, it's in your armpit, it's things that like people don't see, right? So everybody has these things that you see and you can't see, but how can I stand here and say, here's who I am, battle scars and all. And by the way, my duty is to combat, protect others, address anxiety. So how do I do that? Well, one, I know how to protect myself from it. And I show up in my battle gear, and I show up with my battle scars, and I share with other people so that they can also protect themselves. It's not my responsibility to protect everybody, but it is my responsibility to throw it out into the world and to talk about anxiety and to talk about tips and tricks and to be there when somebody asks for a little bit of help, to essentially combat it. And so anxiety, it's as a society, how can we all band together to make this more normal, to make it have less control, so that we're the ones driving our lives instead of this thing called anxiety. And I'm going to show up armor and battle scars and all of it right there.
We did it, warriors. We wrapped this thing. We wrapped this year with just the biggest, most beautiful purple and blue bow, because those are our colors, purple and turquoise blue. And maybe has some sparkle and shine on it, some twinkles that we've added, because hearing from all of our warrior guests share their answers to what does it mean to be an anxiety warrior, and hearing it all in this consecutive collaborative form just felt like a smile from ear to ear, a warm hug. It just felt like, yes, right? Over and over again. That's just what kept coming up in my brain. It's like, yes, fuck yes. This is exactly why this question means so much, because it's what we can all carry with us. And as we move through our day, as we continue to move through our weeks and months and years of our life, living as warriors in one way or another, whether you're more of a depression warrior or you're an anxiety warrior that also has some, OCD, and you've also got some of this, and we can all just kind of take these wonderful anecdotes about, who am I? What does it mean to be this thing, an anxiety warrior, a warrior, period? And how can I use it to remind me of my freaking worth throughout my life?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's really, it's like, it's a reminder, like, I am strong. I do show up, right? Like, I am moving through this, even with all the challenges I have that people don't even see. Right. It's all within, it's all inside. And I'm still here, so I just loved listening to these answers.
Yes. Thank you so much for being with us, warriors. Abby, thank you for editing this show. warriors, there's so much that goes on behind the scenes with the podcast. And I'm sure maybe some of you think about it. Maybe some of you don't think about it, but if you don't, I want you to know how hard we both work, but Abby does all of the editing and all of the recording of our podcasts. And it means a lot to me that she does that work, because I certainly feel like not only do I not want to do it, but I wouldn't do it as well. And so I'm grateful to you for journeying with me this year again, and providing the show for all of our warrior guests and listeners, because, I just think it's important that we remember that we've made this space, right? Like we talk a lot about community, but it is our community. We're the ones that put it together and continue to fight for it and keep it going. And so I'm stoked to see what season 3 will hold for you and me, what kind of amazing warriors will join us on our show, and how many new warrior family members we can add to the clan. On Instagram and all the places, and here in our feed.
Well, I just want to say part of being an anxiety warrior is us both expressing what we're stronger at and letting and trusting and letting that person do it. Right. I mean, so many times in my past, like, collaboration with someone else was hard because I had to prove how smart I was or how good I was, or I had to step out of my comfort zone to prove something, even though I was better at something else. And I think part of what makes it's a lot of work doing this podcast, but what makes it so enjoyable is we just totally accept and trust each other in the roles that we take, and we support each other when someone wants the support in the role we've taken. Sometimes when I'm editing, I'm like, hey, can you just listen to this? Right. And so I really appreciate everything you add to the show. You're growing our community on Instagram. I appreciate everything you do. And I'm just really excited for the next season as well, because it's just been a joy meeting our guests. It's a joy connecting with our listeners. And I can't imagine doing this with someone else. Right?
Yes,
like
100%. No way.
So easy and fun and enjoyable, and like my world lights up every time we connect.
Same. Yeah, it's so true. I mean, I do think you and I happen to be very lucky in that we complement each other well, and we both have some of the same strengths, but also very different strengths. And like you said, I love being able to stand in the power of, like, I know who I am and I know myself, and I can also give of and trust in my partner, which is you in this podcasting world.
Yeah.
And as we continue to move through into season 3, one of my hopes is that, aside from just wanting to continue to grow our community and grow our number of guests and listeners around the world and all of that stuff, I just want to keep learning about myself so I can keep helping and being there for others. And that's been the through line for so many, like you had mentioned, right? So many of our guests that responded to this question said things like, I'm hoping to do X for my kids. I'm hoping to break that cycle. I'm hoping to, support my community. And I feel like something that we often forget is we need to feel supported and loved and safe and seen before we can go out in the world, or even to our own freaking family members, and support and love and see them. And so that's one of my hopes for myself, and in turn, our community this upcoming season.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I don't know what my hope is. I didn't fully think about it, but I know that one of my hopes, which, I have, it's an unplanned, what I was going to say hope, but one of my hopes really is just to continue normalizing the conversation. Like that's all I want to do. And when we have our guests, like, so often people have made they've talked about, like, yeah, if you break a leg, everyone's like, hey, how's your leg? Or if you have diabetes, like, if you have some physical issue, it's spoken about. There's not that much stigma around it. And I just that's what I want to keep doing, where it's so super normal, where someone's like, how are you doing? And you're like, oh, I'm having a lot of anxiety. And you can say that to anyone. Doesn't matter who it is. Right. And it's not seen as a weakness. It's not seen as something to be fixed. It's just seen as something just like every other physical challenge we might have.
Yeah. You're not expected to go it alone.
Yeah.
Right. In the same way
Right.
that you wouldn't be expected to handle like a disease or something that's going on with you physically alone.
Right. If you
You're
have a
gonna
broken
team of
leg,
people.
yeah. If you have a broken
Support.
leg, you're not needy, right? You just have a
exactly.
fucking broken leg, right? And so it's the same thing. When you have anxiety, you're not needy. Just sometimes you need someone to hold your hand and walk with you.
Yes, that's right. We can be warriors for ourselves, so we can be warriors for each other. Love, love, love it. And we love you, warriors, so, so much. We are so excited for the next chapter of Anxiety Warriors podcast. And we know that all of you all would be riding that train with us. Choo choo, all aboard. Wah, wah. So, warriors, if you'd like to connect with us for any reason, you can join us on Instagram at Anxiety Warriors Podcast, or feel free to email us at anxietywarriorspodcast@gmail.com. We are starting to book our guests for the new year, for the upcoming season. So, if you have a story you'd like to share, or if you know a warrior in your life that has a unique or not so unique story, right? We're here to tell the ordinary stories. That's us. Our stories are pretty ordinary. Anxiety, mental health stuff, as Abby just said, right? These are normal things that humans go through. And so we'd love to help you or the warriors that you know in your life to share your story or their story here on our show. So please feel free to reach out. Take 2 seconds and smash that 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you tune in. Like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have all of our episodes uploaded for you over there. And if you are interested in grabbing yourself some podcast merch, we have a lot actually available for you on our Threadless shop, which you can find in our show notes.
Yep.
So hop on over there, click the link, and support our show in style with some Anxiety Warriors podcast merch.
Yes. Well, wishing you all a very peaceful new year. We are very excited to be with you for season 3. And thank you all so much for going on this journey with us. We are just so, so grateful that we get to do this with all of you.
Thank you, warriors. See you in 2023. Till next time.